So Daniel, still managing that little apartment building on Oak Street? My brother Peter asked, smirking over his glass of wine at our weekly family dinner. Must be exciting, unclogging toilets and chasing down rent checks. I nodded, taking a sip of water while mentally reviewing the 3 major property acquisitions I finalized that morning. The Oak Street building had been my first purchase 8 years ago. A small 12-unit complex that my family saw as proof of my limited ambition. They had no idea it was just the beginning. Someone has to do it, I replied mildly, hiding my amusement as I thought about the luxury high-rise I now owned across from Peter's law office. He paid premium rent there, never suspecting that his underachieving younger brother was actually his landlord. You know, my sister Amanda chimed in, there's still time to do something more substantial with your life. I know a guy at Goldman Sachs who's always looking for analysts. I bit back a laugh, thinking of the meeting I'd had last week with Goldman's real estate division. They'd been practically begging to handle the IPO for my company, Sterling Properties, though they knew it only by its corporate name, not realizing its CEO was sitting at this very table. Uncomfortable where I am, I said, just as I did every week when my family tried to help me find a real career. My father shook his head, disappointment evident in his expression. Son, you had such potential. Graduated top of your class in business school, could have gone anywhere. And you chose to become a small-time landlord. If only they knew that their small-time landlord had parlayed that first apartment building into a real estate empire worth over $800 million. That their supposedly underachieving son now owned most of the prime commercial and residential properties in the city. But I'd learned long ago that sometimes the best success is the kind nobody sees coming. How's the new office building working out? I asked Peter, knowing exactly how it was working out since I personally overseen the recent renovations. Fantastic, he boasted. Corner office on the 30th floor, best views in the city. Though the rent's highway robbery, some investment group called Sterling Properties owns it, probably some faceless corporation run by greedy executives. I smiled into my wine glass. Sterling Properties was anything but faceless. It was named after my grandmother, the only person who supported my real estate dreams from the beginning. She'd given me the seed money for that first apartment building, believing in me when everyone else thought I was throwing my life away. Did you hear about the new development going up downtown? Amanda asked excitedly. Luxury condos, shopping, offices, it's going to transform the whole area. My firm's hoping to get some of the legal work when they break ground. I heard about that. I replied casually that I actually spent my morning reviewing the final architectural plans. The $200 million development was my biggest project yet, though as far as my family knew, I was still just collecting rent checks on Oak Street. My phone buzzed. A text from my project manager about the development. City Council approved all permits. We can start construction next week. Probably another message about a clogged drain, Peter joked, noticing my phone. The glamorous life of a building manager. I excused myself to take the call, stepping into our parents' elegant garden. Behind me, I could hear my family's voices drift through the open window. Poor Daniel, my mother sighed. If only he'd taken that job at Morgan Stanley after graduation. He could have been someone by now. At least he's honest work, Dad replied. Though I wish he'd shown more ambition. His cousin James just made partner at his investment firm. I smiled, remembering the meeting I'd had with James's firm last month. They'd been pitching hard to handle Sterling Properties' portfolio, never realizing they were presenting to the cousin they pitied at family gatherings. Back inside, the conversation had turned to the city's real estate boom. My family loved discussing property values and development projects, never suspecting that the person driving much of that growth was sitting right at their table. The old Harrison Hotel downtown just sold for $50 million, Peter announced. Can you believe it? Some mystery buyers swooped in and paid cash. I nodded thoughtfully, remembering signing those papers just yesterday. The Harrison would be the crown jewel of my hotel division, once renovations were complete. Must be nice, Amanda said wistfully, having that kind of money to throw around. Meanwhile, Daniel's still collecting quarters from laundry machines. If she only knew about the offshore accounts, the investment portfolios. The properties registered under layers of LLCs. I'd built my empire in secret, using my family's assumptions about me as the perfect cover. After dinner, I drove to my apartment, actually the penthouse of one of my luxury buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered stunning views of the city skyline, dotted with properties I owned. Hotels, office towers, apartment complexes, shopping centers. My assistant had left the latest acquisition proposals on my desk. Another lawyer's office looking to lease premium space. I made a note to offer Peter's firm some competition. A restaurant group wanting to expand into my retail locations. A tech company needing an entire floor of my downtown tower. My phone buzzed again, this time my lead broker with news about another potential acquisition. Owners of the Riverside development finally willing to sell, asking $125 million. Should I make an offer? I texted back an affirmative, then walked to my window wall. The Riverside property would connect several of my existing developments, creating a continuous stretch of Sterling Properties owned real estate along the most valuable waterfront in the city. 8 years ago, when I bought that first small apartment building, my family had been almost embarrassed. Their brilliant son, with his MBA and stellar prospects, choosing to become a mere landlord. They tried everything to change my mind, but I'd seen something they hadn't. That small building had been perfectly positioned for the city's coming growth. I leveraged it to buy 2 more properties, then 4, then 10. Each acquisition carefully chosen, each property improved and maximized for value. I used different company names, hidden ownership structures, discrete banking relationships. As far as the public knew, Sterling Properties was a major real estate investment firm run by anonymous executives. As far as my family knew, I was still just managing that first apartment building on Oak Street. The next morning, I arrived early at my downtown office. The real one, not the small property management office I kept for show. The Wall Street Journal was on my desk, featuring an article about the mysterious Sterling Properties and its growing real estate empire. Sources say the company's CEO is a young business school graduate who's quietly become one of the biggest property owners in the region. The article read, though their identity remains unknown, their impact on the city's development is undeniable. I smiled, remembering yesterday's family dinner. If they only knew that the small-time landlord they pitied was actually reshaping the entire city's skyline. My intercom buzzed, my real assistant this time, not the part-time property manager I employed for appearances. Mr. Sterling, the investment committee is ready for you in the main conference room, and the architects for the Riverside development are here to present their initial designs. I straightened my tie, checking that my visitors list was clear of any family members who might accidentally discover my secret. Another day of building my empire while the world, and my family, remained oblivious to who was really behind it all. The revelation happened on a Tuesday morning in the most unexpected way. I was sitting in my private conference room at Sterling Properties headquarters, reviewing plans for the Riverside development when my assistant's voice came through the intercom. Mr. Sterling, there's a Peter Wilson here from Maxwell and Partners law firm. He's here for the lease negotiation meeting. My heart stopped. Peter Wilson, my brother Peter, wasn't supposed to be here. His firm's managing partner was supposed to handle the meeting. Sir, my assistant prompted, should I send him in? I had seconds to decide. I could hide in my private office, send someone else to handle the meeting. But sooner or later, this moment was bound to come. Maybe it was time. Send him in. The door opened and Peter walked in, his eyes fixed on his phone as he reviewed notes. I'm here to meet with Daniel Sterling about our lease renewal. The managing partner had a conflict, so I'll be handling. He looked up and froze. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. My brother, impeccable in his $1,000 suit, standing in my conference room. Me, his underachieving younger brother, sitting at the head of the table in front of architectural plans worth millions. Daniel. His voice cracked. What are you? Why are you? Hello, Peter, I said calmly. Please have a seat. We should discuss your firm's lease terms. He didn't move. You work for Sterling Properties? Not exactly. I gestured to the nameplate on my desk. I am Sterling Properties. He sank into a chair, his face pale. That's impossible. Sterling Properties is worth. They own half the city. Actually closer to 60% of prime commercial real estate now, I corrected. The Riverside development will push it to 65. The Riverside. His eyes widened as connections started forming. The Harrison Hotel purchase, the downtown development Amanda was talking about. That was all you? I nodded. Would you like to see the portfolio? For the next hour, I walked him through it all. The properties, the developments, the acquisitions. 8 years of empire building while my family thought I was just collecting rent checks. Does anyone else know? He finally asked. The family? No. Just you now. I leaned back in my chair, though I suppose that's about to change. He looked at me sharply. Why did you keep it secret? All these years letting us think. Letting you think what, Peter? That I was a failure. That I had wasted my potential. I stood up, walking to the window wall. You all made it very clear what you thought of my career choice. We were wrong, he said quietly. Yes, I agreed. You were. My phone buzzed. A message from Amanda. Family dinner tonight. Don't forget. I showed Peter the text. Shall we tell them together? The drive to our parents' house that evening felt different. Peter was uncharacteristically quiet in his car ahead of me. I followed him up the familiar driveway, knowing everything was about to change. You're late, Mom called from the kitchen. Amanda was just telling us about the new client she landed. She trailed off, seeing our expressions. Is everything okay? Dad asked, looking between us. Peter cleared his throat. You might want to sit down. There's something you need to know about Daniel. Over the next hour, I laid it all out. The properties, the developments, the empire I'd built while they dismissed me as a small-time landlord. I showed them articles about sterling properties, architectural renderings of my projects, financial statements that made their eyes widen. $800 million? Amanda whispered, staring at the numbers. You're worth $800 million. That's last quarter's valuation. I corrected. The Riverside development should push it over $1 billion. But you drive a Toyota, Mom stammered. It's a good car, I shrugged. Reliable, like that first apartment building everyone thought was such a waste of time. Dad hadn't spoken yet. He sat in his favorite chair, looking at me like he'd never seen me before. All those family dinners, he finally said. All those times we tried to help you find a real career, you just sat there and let us. Let you show me exactly who you were, I finished. Every smirk, every dismissive comment, every pitying look. It was educational. Educational? Amanda's voice rose. It was cruel. Letting us make fools of ourselves. Cruel? I turned to her. Like suggesting I get an entry-level job at your friend's company. Like mocking my little apartment building every chance you got. That kind of cruel. The room fell silent. The truth is, I continued more softly. I kept it secret at first because I needed to prove something to myself. But then I saw how you all acted when you thought I was struggling. The condescension. The superiority. The absolute certainty that your paths were better than mine. So this was revenge? Peter asked. No, I shook my head. This was a mirror. I just let you see yourselves clearly. Mom started crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years. Amanda kept staring at her phone, probably calculating how many times she'd inadvertently insulted one of the city's biggest developers. The Riverside development, she said suddenly. My firm was hoping to get that legal work. Already assigned, I cut her off. To a firm that didn't spend years mocking its client. Peter shifted uncomfortably, probably thinking about his own firm's lease negotiation. About the office space. Your lease terms will remain fair, I assured him. I don't mix business with family, though apparently I'm the only one who feels that way. The next few weeks were awkward. My family struggled to reconcile their image of Daniel the landlord with the reality of who I was. They oscillated between apologetic and resentful, not sure whether to be proud of my success or angry at my deception. The local business press had a field day when my identity was finally revealed. Mystery developer unmasked, read one headline. Sterling Properties CEO hidden in plain sight, declared another. My phone filled with messages from relatives who dismissed me for years, now suddenly eager to reconnect. Investment opportunities, business proposals, lunch invitations, all from people who wouldn't have given me the time of day a month ago. I ignored them all. Instead, I focused on what I did best, building, developing, growing my empire. The Riverside development broke ground on schedule. The Harrison Hotel renovation proceeded according to plan. New opportunities arose daily. 6 months after the revelation, I hosted a family dinner at my penthouse. They'd never been there before. Had never even known it existed. Watching them take in the spectacular views, The elegant furnishings, the obvious wealth, I felt no triumph. Only a quiet sadness for all the years wasted on false assumptions and missed connections. I have an announcement, I said as we sat down to eat. Sterling Properties is going public next month. The IPO should value the company at around $2 billion. They had absorbed this in silence. You could have told us sooner, Mom said finally. We're your family. Are we? I asked quietly. For 8 years, you showed me exactly what kind of family you were. Every dismissive comment, every condescending suggestion, every pitying look, that was family. We were wrong, Dad admitted. But you have to understand, we thought we were helping. We wanted you to succeed. No, I corrected him. You wanted me to succeed your way, on your terms, following your paths. You never once considered that I might know what I was doing. And now? Amanda asked. What happens now? I looked out at my city, because it was my city now, shaped by my vision, transformed by my work. Now, I said, we start over. But this time, we do it honestly. No more assumptions. No more judgments. No more trying to force each other into boxes we've created. And the company? Peter asked. Will continue to grow, but not through family connections or favors. Success should be earned, not inherited. They nodded slowly, finally understanding. Today, Sterling Properties is worth over $3 billion. We own properties across the country, developing communities, shaping skylines, building something lasting. My family? We're building something too. Something harder than real estate empires but more valuable. Real relationships based on truth and mutual respect rather than appearances and expectations. Peter's firm still leases office space in my building, but now he negotiates directly with my team, no special treatment. Amanda's firm occasionally handles legal work for smaller projects, earned through competitive bidding. Mom and Dad are learning to be proud of what I've built, not what they wish I'd built. And me. I still drive that Toyota, still visit that first apartment building on Oak Street, still remember the lessons learned while building an empire in secret. Because sometimes the biggest successes aren't the ones you can see in a skyline. Sometimes they're the ones that teach you, and those around you, what really matters.
Another package? Dad's voice dripped with disdain as I carried yet another box of inventory into my bedroom-turned-warehouse. When are you going to get a real job, Sarah? I ignored him just like I'd been ignoring his comments for the past year. My fake job of selling luxury vintage watches online had already generated more income than his traditional jewelry store had seen in the past decade. Not that he knew that. Leave her alone, Robert, Mom sighed, though her tone carried its own judgment. At least she's doing something while looking for proper employment. Proper employment. Right. Like their failing jewelry store Maxwell & Sons, which hadn't turned a profit since 2019. The same store they'd mortgaged our house to keep afloat, believing that traditional retail would somehow make a miraculous comeback. I found another Patek Philippe Nautilus, I announced, carefully unpacking the watch. Original owner, perfect condition. Should fetch around $185,000. Stop with these fantasy numbers, Dad scoffed. No one buys expensive watches online. People need to see, touch, feel luxury items. If only he knew that his precious store's entire monthly revenue couldn't match what I made from a single vintage watch sale. My phone pinged, another notification from my banking app. The last Rolex I'd sold had cleared, adding another $97,000 to my account. I smiled, remembering how Dad had called me crazy for paying $50,000 for it 3 weeks ago. Sarah, Mom called from downstairs. We're having a family meeting tonight. Your father needs to discuss something important. I already knew what it was about. I'd seen the final notice from the bank yesterday, dropped off by a sympathetic courier who'd become one of my regular customers. Maxwell & Sons needed $1 million loan to survive, and no bank would touch them with their current financials. That evening, we gathered around our dining table, the same one where Dad had lectured me countless times about real business. The store is facing some temporary challenges, he began, trying to maintain his dignity. But I found a solution. We just need a small loan to tide us over. Small. I raised an eyebrow. You need $1 million, Dad. His head snapped up. How did you? The courier told me. Small town, remember? Mom wrung her hands nervously. We have an appointment at First Metropolitan Bank tomorrow. They've always been good to us. I bit back a laugh. First Metropolitan, the bank whose private banking division I'd been working with for the past year. The same bank that had helped me invest my profits into acquiring smaller financial institutions across the state. I'm sure it'll work out, I said neutrally, checking my phone. Another sale notification. $203,000 for a rare Vacheron Constantine I'd acquired last month. This isn't funny, Sarah, Dad snapped. While you're playing shop online, we're trying to save a real business. A legacy. A legacy of stubbornness and outdated thinking, I wanted to say. Said I stood up. Good luck with the loan application. I have some packages to ship. See. Dad threw up his hands. No understanding of real business. Running around with packages while we're facing ruin. If he'd bothered to look in those packages, he'd have seen watches worth more than his store's entire inventory. The next morning, I arrived at First Metropolitan Bank early, nodding to the security guard who knew me well, not as the online seller my parents dismissed, but as the owner of 3 local branches, including this one. I watched from my private office as my parents walked in, dressed in their Sunday best, clutching their loan application like a lifeline. Mr. and Mrs. Maxwell, the bank manager Thompson, greeted them. Please come this way. I'd instructed Thompson to handle their application personally. He'd been skeptical when I'd bought this branch 6 months ago, but my success in modernizing its operations had turned him into my strongest advocate. Through the one-way glass, I watched as they settled into his office. Dad straightened his tie, the same one he'd worn for 20 years. Mom smoothed her outdated dress, probably believing it made her look professional. About your loan application, Thompson began, glancing briefly at my office door. We've been customers for 30 years, Dad started his prepared speech. Maxwell & Sons is an institution in this town. I'm aware, Thompson nodded. However, I'll need to consult with the branch owner about any loan of this size. The owner. Mom's voice trembled. I thought the bank's board. Oh no, Thompson smiled. This branch, along with 2 others in the county, was acquired by a private investor last year. Someone with a particular interest in modernizing traditional businesses. Dad puffed up. Well, I'm sure they'll understand the value of traditional retail. Why don't we ask her? Thompson pressed the intercom. Miss Maxwell, would you join us? The look on their faces as I walked in, dressed in a Chanel suit that cost more than their monthly revenue, was worth every dismissive comment, every sneer, every lecture about real jobs. Sarah. Mom whispered. Hello, Mom, Dad. I sat down behind Thompson's desk. So, you need $1 million loan? The silence in Thompson's office was deafening. Dad's face had gone through several shades of red before settling on a sickly pale, while Mom's loan application shook violently in her trembling hands. This is some kind of joke, Dad finally managed, his voice hoarse. You don't own this bank branch? I finished for him, pulling up their loan application on my tablet. Along with the branches in Riverside and Maplewood? Surely I do. Now let's look at Maxwell & Sons financials, shall we? I turned the screen toward them, displaying their store's devastating numbers. Revenue down 68% over 3 years. Foot traffic reduced by 82%. Operating costs eating up any remaining profit margin. And I swiped to the next page. 3 rejected loan applications from other banks in the past month. How did you get this information? Mom whispered. I'm a bank owner, Mom. It's my job to know. I leaned back in my chair, remembering all the times they'd dismissed my business acumen. Just like it's my job to know that Dad turned down an online sales platform implementation last year because, what was it? Real jewelry needs to be sold face-to-face? Thompson discreetly excused himself, leaving us alone in the tension-filled office. Those online watch sales, Dad said slowly, realization dawning. The packages, the numbers you mentioned, were all real, I confirmed. That Patek Philippe I mentioned yesterday? Sold it this morning for $192,000. Better than your store's entire quarterly revenue, isn't it? Mom's hands were crushing the loan application now. But how? I pulled up my business dashboard on the large wall screen. While you were clinging to your outdated business model, I built this. An international luxury watch marketplace with authenticated sellers and verified buyers. Last month's revenue? $12 million. 12 million. Dad's tie suddenly seemed too tight. And that's just the watch business. The bank branches were an investment opportunity one couldn't pass up. Especially this one. I smiled, remembering their decades of banking here, never suspecting their dismissed daughter would one day own it. Why didn't you tell us? Mom asked, her voice small. Tell you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like when I tried to tell you about my first six-figure sale. Dad called it beginner's luck. Or when I offered to help modernize Maxwell & Sons. You both said I needed to understand real business first. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the street and their jewelry store across from it. The empty storefront was a stark contrast to my thriving online empire. Do you know what I learned about real business, Dad? It's not about maintaining traditions that don't work anymore. It's about adapting, evolving, seeing where the market is going instead of clinging to where it's been. We could have worked together, he said weakly. Could we? Because I remember offering exactly that last Christmas. You said, and I quote, "No daughter of mine is going to turn Maxwell & Sons into some internet flea market." The irony was delicious. My internet flea market had made me a millionaire while their precious traditional store was on the brink of bankruptcy. About the loan, Mom ventured tentatively. Right. The loan. I returned to my seat and pulled up the application. Let's see. You're requesting $1 million to modernize inventory and update store operations. Interesting choice of words, considering Dad's speech last week about how modern retail is destroying craftsmanship. Sarah, please. Dad's voice had lost its usual authority. The store. It's our legacy. Legacy. I clicked through more financial reports. A legacy of declining sales? Of ignoring market trends? Of dismissing your daughter's success because it didn't fit your definition of real business. I pulled out another document, one I'd had prepared for weeks, knowing this day would come. I'm prepared to offer you two options, I said, my voice professionally neutral. Option 1. A structured loan with strict conditions, including full implementation of an online sales platform, modern inventory management system and digital marketing strategy, all managed by my team. And option 2? Mom asked quietly. I buy Maxwell & Sons. Market value plus 20%. You both retire with a comfortable consultation fee, and I transform the store into a high-end authentication center for my online marketplace. The silence that followed was heavy with decades of assumptions, dismissals, and missed opportunities. You'd buy us out? Dad's voice cracked. Unless you're ready to admit that selling things online is a real job, I replied, echoing his sneering tone from countless family dinners. The next 24 hours unfolded like a slow-motion collision between old and new worlds. My parents had taken the loan documents and buyout offer home, promising to think it over. But I knew my father well enough to know his pride was waging war with his desperation. I sat in my private office at the bank, reviewing security footage from Maxwell & Sons. Through the high-resolution cameras I'd had installed across the street, another investment they'd never noticed, I watched them pace the empty store floor, gesturing animatedly as they argued about their options. Miss Maxwell. My assistant Claire appeared with my afternoon coffee. Your parents have made 17 calls to the bank this morning. They're asking about your net worth, company structure, and whether you're really the owner. I couldn't help but smile. Still can't believe it, can they? Also, that Cartier collection you acquired last week? Just sold for $3.2 million. The buyer wants to know if you're interested in their Patek Philippe portfolio. Schedule a meeting. I turned back to the security feed. Mom was crying now, Dad pacing faster. And Claire? Clear my schedule for dinner. I believe we're about to have a family meeting. Right on cue, my phone rang. Dad's number. Sarah. His voice had lost the condescending tone I'd grown up with. Can we meet? To discuss the options. Of course. Giovanni's at 7. I named the most expensive restaurant in town, the same one where he'd once told me I was wasting my potential with internet schemes. We can't afford. I treat. I cut him off. Consider it a business dinner. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of international sales, property acquisitions, and investment decisions. My online empire never slept. While Maxwell & Sons struggled to attract local customers, I was closing deals across time zones. At 6:55 p.m. I walked into Giovanni's, where the maitre d' immediately straightened. "Ms. Maxwell, your usual table is ready." I caught my parents' shocked expressions as they waited in the lobby, clearly uncomfortable in their dated formal wear. They'd never known I owned this restaurant too, another quiet investment in my hometown. This way, I led them to the private dining room overlooking the city. "You come here often?" Mom asked, noting how the staff treated me. "I own it," I replied casually, watching their faces process yet another revelation. The wine cellar alone was worth the investment. Dad nearly choked on his water. "You own Giovanni's?" "Among other things." I opened my wine list, and selected a bottle that cost more than their monthly mortgage. "Now about Maxwell and Sons." "We've been talking," Mom began carefully. "Your father and I want to know how I did it," I finished. How their daughter built all this while they weren't watching. Dad's face flushed. "Sarah, let me tell you a story," I interrupted as the sommelier poured our wine. "About a girl whose parents told her she was wasting her time selling watches online. Who used her college fund to buy her first inventory because no one would back her internet scheme. Who worked 18-hour days building a platform while her father told everyone she was between real jobs." The wine trembled in Mom's glass. "We didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I corrected. "Every time I tried to show you, you dismissed it. Remember last Thanksgiving? When I offered to buy you a new car, and Dad said he wouldn't accept charity from internet gambling? That Bentley in your parking spot at the bank." Dad's eyes widened. "That's yours. All three of them are mine. Along with this restaurant, those bank branches, and a portfolio that would make your real businessman friends faint." I pulled out my tablet. "Now about your decision." They exchanged glances. Mom nodded slightly. "We'll take the loan," Dad said quietly. With your conditions." "All of them?" I raised an eyebrow. "Including modernization, online sales, digital marketing?" "Yes," he whispered, looking like each word physically pained him. "You clearly know what you're doing. Finally figured that out, did you?" I signaled the waiter. "Claire, bring in the papers." My assistant appeared with documents I'd had prepared since morning. I'd known they'd choose the loan. Pride wouldn't let them sell completely. "Sign here," I indicated. "And here. This makes me majority shareholder with 51% ownership. You'll maintain operational control under my company's guidance." 51%? Dad's hand shook over the papers. "But that means that Maxwell and Sons becomes part of my company?" "Yes. Consider it poetic justice." I watched him sign away control of his precious traditional business to his daughter's internet scheme. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll keep the name. Though we might need to update and Sons to and daughter." As they signed the final papers, I pulled up the store's new website on the dining room's hidden screens. "Your new online presence launches tomorrow. First quarter projections show potential revenue increase of 300%. 300%? Mom gasped. "Amazing what can happen when you stop fighting the future." I raised my glass. "To Maxwell and daughter, where tradition meets technology." Dad's face went through a complex journey of emotions before settling on something between shame and admiration. "Sarah, we were wrong." "Yes, you were." I signed the final document. "But lucky for you, your daughter learned business better than you taught it." As we finished dinner, my phone buzzed with another sale notification, $500,000 for a rare Rolex collection. I smiled, remembering Dad's words, "No one buys expensive watches online." "By the way," I added casually, "that internet flea market you mocked? Just hit 100 million in annual revenue. Still think I need a real job." Sometimes success isn't just about proving them wrong, it's about becoming their boss. "Welcome to modern business, Dad. Try to keep up." "You have no future here," Dad declared, his voice echoing through the mahogany-paneled boardroom of Morgan & Sons Technologies. "The board has spoken. Your ideas are too radical, too risky." I clutched my proposal, a comprehensive plan to pivot the company into artificial intelligence and quantum computing. 6 months of research, financial projections, and market analysis dismissed in a 10-minute meeting. "But the market's shifting," I argued. "If we don't adapt now." "Enough." He slammed his hand on the table. We've built this company on solid, traditional software solutions for 40 years. We don't need your startup fantasies. Around the table, board members, mostly Dad's golf buddies and college friends, nodded in agreement. My brother Peter smirked from his VP chair, inherited straight out of business school. The gaming division alone is hemorrhaging money, I pressed. Our enterprise solutions are becoming obsolete. We need to. What we need, Peter interrupted, is for you to stop undermining company stability with these wild schemes. Stick to your project management role. Project management. After my double masters in computer science and business, they'd stuck me in middle management, overseeing legacy system maintenance. The vote is final, Dad concluded. Morgan & Sons will continue its proven path. You can either fall in line or what? I challenged. Find another company that actually wants to succeed in this century? The boardroom fell silent. Dad's face reddened, the same look he'd worn when I chose tech over law school, coding over country clubs. You're suspended, he announced. 2 weeks unpaid. Consider your position here carefully. I stood slowly, gathering my rejected proposal. Oh, I will. In my office, a glorified cubicle compared to Peter's corner suite, I began downloading files. Research, code repositories, client databases. All technically my work, created after hours while the company slept. Cleaning out already? Sarah from HR stood in my doorway, faux sympathy plastered on her face. Such a shame when nepotism fails. I smiled, thinking of the resignation letter already drafted on my personal laptop. Just organizing some files. Peter's already reassigning your projects, she continued. Though honestly, maintenance supervision isn't exactly crucial. No, I agreed, pocketing a flash drive. It's not. That night in my apartment I reviewed my real work. The side projects and consulting gigs I'd been building for the past year. 3 startup offers waiting for responses. A provisional patent for an AI-driven enterprise solution. And most importantly, detailed knowledge of exactly where Morgan & Sons was vulnerable. My phone buzzed. Mom probably calling to lecture about family loyalty and tradition. I let it ring while setting up my new workstation. Another call, Peter, likely gloating about his expanded responsibilities. Ignored. Dad didn't bother calling. He never did after our disagreements. I pulled up my savings account, healthy from years of living below my means while the family flaunted their wealth. Enough seed money to start something. Something that would make Morgan & Sons look like a relic. Time to build a future, I muttered, beginning to code. 2 weeks passed in a blur of development and networking. I never returned to my cubicle. Sarah from HR sent increasingly annoyed emails about exit paperwork. Peter left smug voicemails about learning my place. Dad sent nothing. Radio silence, his preferred weapon. 1 month later, I launched Nova Technologies from a converted warehouse space. Our first product? An AI-powered enterprise solution that made Morgan & Sons flagship software look like Windows 95. 3 months in, we secured series of funding. The investors? Former Morgan & Sons clients who'd grown frustrated with outdated technology. 6 months and our team grew to 50 people, including key developers poached from my family's company. Peter's angry calls switched from mocking to threatening legal action. 1 year and Nova Technologies dominated industry headlines. Tech startup revolutionizes enterprise solutions. Traditional software giants struggle to compete. Morgan & Sons stock plummets amid market shifts. I kept every article, but my favorite was from the Wall Street Journal. Next-gen tech leader emerges from shadow of family legacy. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. Morgan & Sons needed investors. Desperately. The board is considering outside capital, Dad's secretary emailed. Your expertise in current market trends would be valued. I leaned back in my CEO chair, overlooking the city from my actual corner office. Through floor-to-ceiling windows I could see the Morgan & Sons building, smaller now somehow. Schedule the meeting, I replied. I have some thoughts about their future. And mine. The Morgan & Sons boardroom hadn't changed. Same mahogany panels, same oversized portraits of company founders, same air of fading glory. But the people around the table had changed. Gone were Dad's golf buddies, replaced by worried-looking executives clutching financial reports. I arrived deliberately late, letting them stew. My Armani suit cost more than Peter's monthly salary now. My quiet confidence built on actual success rather than inherited position. Thank you for coming, Dad began stiffly, age and stress evident in his face. We're here to discuss potential investment opportunities. You mean a bailout? I corrected, setting down my tablet. Let's be precise. Peter shifted uncomfortably in his deflated VP chair. Market conditions have temporarily created exactly the situation I warned you about 2 years ago. I pulled up their quarterly reports, leaked by former employees now working for me. Your gaming division is dead. Enterprise Solutions market share down 60%. 3 failed product launches in 18 months. The board members avoided eye contact. They'd seen the numbers, lived the decline. We're exploring strategic partnerships, Dad attempted. You're exploring bankruptcy, I countered. Your last 2 quarters burned through cash reserves. Major clients are jumping ship. And your technology. I gestured to my tablet, displaying their outdated code base. Belongs in a museum. If you're here to gloat, Peter snapped, save it. We need serious investors, not. Nova Technologies' market cap passed $2 billion last quarter, I interrupted. Your company's worth less than our R&D budget. So yes, I'm serious. Dad's knuckles whitened around his pen. What are you proposing? I distributed tablets containing my offer. The board members' eyes widened at the numbers. Complete acquisition. Nova Technologies absorbs all assets, intellectual property and remaining client contracts. We retain 30% of current staff, ones who can actually code modern solutions. 30%? Peter exploded. What happens to everyone else? Generous severance packages, I replied coolly. More than you were planning to offer before the bankruptcy filing next month. Dad's head snapped up. How did you know about? I know everything. I pulled up more documents, including the hidden debt, the inflated client numbers, and the personal loans taken against company assets. Did you really think I wouldn't do due diligence? The boardroom fell silent except for the hum of tablets displaying hard truths. This is ruthless, Dad finally said. This is business, I corrected. The kind you claimed I didn't understand. One board member, the only woman besides me in the room, spoke up. The terms are actually quite fair. Above market value, considering our position. Above market value? Peter scoffed. It's highway robbery. No, I smiled slightly. It's market correction. Something else I warned you about. I stood, smoothing my suit. You have 24 hours to accept. After that, I'll begin approaching your clients directly. You've seen how that usually ends. You would destroy your own family's legacy? Dad demanded. You did that already, I replied calmly. I'm offering to salvage what's left. And what happens to us? Peter asked, vulnerability finally cracking his arrogance. You'll receive the same severance as other non-retained employees. I paused at the door. Though I hear Tesla's looking for project managers. For legacy systems. I left them with their tablets, their fading portraits, their crumbling empire. My heels clicked purposefully down corridors where I'd once been told I had no future. In my car, a custom Tesla, ironically, I reviewed Nova's latest projections. Our quantum computing division was months ahead of schedule. The AI solutions were revolutionizing industries. And our gaming studio's first release had just hit 1 million downloads. They're calling an emergency board meeting, my inside source texted. Your father's having the lawyers review the offer. Tell accounting to prepare the wire transfers, I replied. They'll sign. Another text. Mom, breaking her year-long silence. Please don't destroy everything your father built. He did that himself, I wrote back. I'm building something better. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparations. Legal teams finalizing documents. HR preparing transition plans. Tech teams ready to integrate salvageable systems. At exactly 3 p.m. the following day, my phone rang. The board accepts. Dad's voice was hollow. With conditions. There are no conditions, I replied. Sign as is or I walk. You know what happens next. A long pause filled with 20 years of dismissal, underestimation, and missed opportunities. The papers will be ready in an hour. I'll send my lawyers, I said. I'm too busy building the future. 6 months after the acquisition, I stood in my new office. The entire top floor of Nova Technologies' gleaming headquarters. The old Morgan & Sons building was visible from my windows, now bearing our logo, its outdated interior gutted for modernization. The transition report. Rachel, my chief operating officer, placed a tablet on my desk. Final numbers exceed projections. I scrolled through the data. Client retention at 85%, technology integration completed 2 months ahead of schedule, stock price up 40% since the acquisition announcement. And the former employees? Most found positions with other companies. Some retired. A few started their own ventures. She paused. Your brother interviewed at Microsoft last week. Project management? Junior systems analyst. Apparently he's actually learning to code. Progress comes in many forms, I thought, remembering Peter's smug dismissals of basic programming. Your father's office has been cleared, Rachel continued. We found some interesting documents in his private files. She pulled up scanned images. My original proposals from years ago, covered in detailed notes. Market analyses I'd prepared, marked with grudging acknowledgments. Letters from clients warning about technological obsolescence. All ignored. He knew, I said softly. He knew I was right. There's more. Rachel hesitated. We found your college thesis, the one predicting the AI revolution. He had it professionally bound. Before I could process that, my phone buzzed. Mom, actually using text now. Having coffee tomorrow? Need to talk. Our weekly meetings had become a strange new ritual. She traded country club gossip for genuine questions about technology, business, life. Last week she'd asked about coding boot camps. The old board's severance packages are processed, Rachel reported, including the additional healthcare coverage you added. They earned that much at least, I murmured, through years of dedicated mistakes. My tablet chimed with industry news. Nova Technologies announces quantum computing breakthrough. AI solutions reshape enterprise landscape. Tech's new guard. Innovation trumps legacy. Your keynote speech for next week's tech conference is ready for review, Rachel added. They're expecting 5,000 attendees. I smiled, remembering boardroom dismissals of my radical ideas. Topic: Building future-proof organizations. Lessons from a legacy's end. Perfect. A notification popped up. Dad requesting a meeting. His first direct contact since the acquisition. Schedule it, I decided. But in the new building. He arrived exactly on time, looking smaller in off-the-rack business casual. The security badge clipped to his jacket read Visitor, a pointed reminder of changed circumstances. Impressive, he gestured at the surroundings, all glass and steel and cutting-edge technology. Very forward-thinking. That was always the point, I replied, leading him to my office. Welcome to the future you didn't want. He absorbed the view, his old building dwarfed by our new headquarters. I've been watching your company's progress. The quantum computing announcement, that was your project from 3 years ago. The one you called a sci-fi fantasy? Yes. He sat heavily in a visitor chair. I found your old proposals. Your predictions, they all came true. That's what happens when you actually study markets instead of playing golf with board members. I was wrong, he said quietly. About everything. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. Why are you here, Dad? To learn. He pulled out a tablet, basic model, well used. I've been studying, taking online courses, trying to understand what I missed. I raised an eyebrow. At your age. At any age, he corrected. You taught me that, at least. The hard way. Another notification. Peter sending his first piece of actual code for review. Need feedback on this algorithm. Being interviewed by Google next week. Your brother's changing too, Dad noted. We all are. Survival requires adaptation. I quoted from my original proposal. Remember. I remember dismissing it. He stood, moving to the windows. The view's different from here. Clearer. Amazing what you can see when you look forward instead of backward. He turned, age and understanding finally replacing arrogance in his eyes. I have a proposal for you, Dad. Not as an executive, he clarified. As someone who learned too late. Someone who might help others avoid the same mistakes. I'm listening. A mentorship program. 4 old guard companies facing technological disruption. Teaching them to embrace change before it destroys them. I studied him. The humility was new, genuine. You'd be admitting your own failures. Yes, he agreed. That's the first lesson. I pulled up my calendar. Draft a proposal. Something concrete, not just golf course wisdom. If it's viable. Thank you, he stood straighter. For this chance. And for saving what you could. I didn't save anything, I corrected. I built something better. There's a difference. After he left, Rachel returned with more updates. Nova's stock hit another record. 3 major clients switched from competitors. Peter's code actually showed promise. I smiled, remembering Mom's horror at my obsession with computers. My phone buzzed one last time, a family group chat newly created. Mom, dinner next week? I want to hear about quantum computing. Peter, after my Google interview. Need to understand that algorithm first. Dad, I'll bring my proposal. And maybe some humility for dessert. I looked out at my empire, built from rejected ideas and underestimated potential. The future stretched before us, full of possibilities they'd finally learned to see. The Anderson family dinner was in full swing at Le Cirque, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. Crystal glasses clinked as New York's elite celebrated my father's 30th year as CEO of Anderson Global Industries, a family legacy I'd supposedly tarnished by walking away from 5 years ago. Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence, my brother Michael sneered as I took my seat. The prodigal daughter returns. I smoothed my simple black dress, a custom Chanel piece worth more than Michael's annual salary, not that anyone at the table would recognize it. To them, if it wasn't flashy, it wasn't expensive. Olivia, Mom's voice dripped with practiced disappointment. Couldn't you have worn something more appropriate? This is a celebration of the Anderson name. The Anderson name. The same name they claimed I'd dragged through the mud when I refused to take my rightful place in the family company. I'm dressed fine, Mom, I replied, accepting a glass of wine from my own vineyard in France, though they didn't know that yet. Dad barely glanced up from his conversation with the board members he'd invited. At least she showed up this time. Unlike the shareholders meeting last month. I was busy, I said simply, checking my phone as another alert came in. My company had just closed another $1 trillion deal. But they'd find that out soon enough. Too busy to support your father? Michael's wife Jessica chimed in, adjusting her ostentatious diamonds. What could possibly be more important than family? If they only knew that while they were planning this self-congratulatory dinner, I'd been orchestrating the largest corporate takeover in history. That their precious Anderson Global Industries was about to become a small subsidiary in my empire. Speaking of family obligations, Dad's voice carried across the table. The board and I have been discussing succession plans. Here it came, the real reason they'd insisted I attend tonight. Michael will be taking over as CEO next month, Dad announced proudly. It's time for the next generation of Andersons to lead the company. The board members nodded approvingly. Michael puffed up like a peacock. Mom dabbed at fake tears with her monogrammed napkin. What about Olivia? Someone asked. Dad's face darkened. Olivia made her choice 5 years ago. She's no longer part of the company's future. She's barely part of the family's future, Michael added with a smirk. What are you doing these days, sis? Still playing with your little tech startup. That little tech startup had just acquired its 100th major corporation this year. Nova Enterprises was about to become the largest technology conglomerate in history. But dinner wasn't quite ready for that revelation. Something like that, I replied, watching another notification pop up on my phone. The final paperwork had just been filed. Anderson Global Industries was now mine. You're a disgrace to the Anderson name, Dad suddenly burst out, his facade cracking. While your brother was learning to lead this company, you were wasting time with computers and coding. You had everything handed to you and you threw it away. The restaurant fell silent. Even the board members looked uncomfortable. William, Mom hissed, not here. No, Margaret, she needs to hear this. Dad's voice rose. Do you know what it's like having to explain to our friends why my daughter chose to become a nobody? Why she walked away from a billion-dollar company to play entrepreneur? I checked my watch, 7:58 p.m. Perfect timing. Actually, Dad, I said calmly, standing up, I think it's time we discuss the real reason I'm here. Sit down, he commanded. You've embarrassed this family enough. No, Dad. You need to hear this. I nodded to the maitre d', who approached with a tablet. You all do. What is this? Michael demanded. The future of Anderson Global Industries, I replied, just as every phone at the table buzzed simultaneously. Breaking news alerts flashed across their screens. Nova Enterprises acquires Anderson Global Industries in historic takeover. Dad's face went pale. What is this? That little tech startup you mocked? I smiled. It just bought your company. All of it. The board voted an hour ago. Impossible, Michael sputtered. The board would never. The board, one of the members spoke up, voted unanimously. Nova Enterprises' offer was too good to refuse. But I'm supposed to be CEO next month, Michael's voice cracked. No, brother dear. You're not. I pulled out my own tablet displaying the new corporate structure. As of 8 o'clock tonight, I'm the new CEO of Anderson Global Industries. Along with every other company Nova owns. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. You. Dad whispered, you own. Everything, I finished for him. That waste of time you mocked? It built the largest technology company in history. Those computer games you laughed at? They're now worth more than Anderson Global has made in its entire existence. The maitre d' approached again. Ms. Anderson, your executive team has arrived. The board meeting begins in 10 minutes. Dad's face turned from pale to ashen. Board meeting. Stat. Your last board meeting as CEO. Don't worry, I'll let you keep an office. A small one. On the first floor. But this was just the beginning. They hadn't even seen my real empire yet. The private dining room had transformed into an impromptu board meeting. The elegant dinner settings were quickly replaced with tablets and corporate documents, while my family sat in stunned silence. Ms. Anderson, my CFO James, entered with a team of executives. The global markets are reacting to the acquisition announcement. Nova's stock is up 47% in after-hours trading. Dad's hands trembled as he watched his life's work being absorbed into my empire. The screens around the room displayed Nova's holdings, hundreds of technology companies, research facilities, and now Anderson Global Industries. Shall we begin the transition briefing? James asked, distributing more tablets. This is ridiculous. Michael stood up, his face red. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, I cut him off, pulling up his performance records. Let's talk about your qualifications to be CEO, shall we? The screens filled with data, Michael's failed projects, covered up mistakes, and mediocre achievements that Dad had painted as successes. Your last 3 initiatives lost the company $240 million, I pointed out. Dad covered the losses by selling off subsidiaries. Subsidiaries that, ironically, I now own. Mom clutched her pearls, real ones, though soon she wouldn't be able to afford them. Olivia, darling, surely we can discuss this as a family. Like you discussed throwing me out of the family when I started Nova? I raised an eyebrow. Or like you discussed removing me from the Christmas card list when I refused Dad's job offer. The screens shifted to show more of Nova's empire. Quantum computing centers, artificial intelligence labs, aerospace facilities, all built while they thought I was playing entrepreneur. Ms. Anderson, another executive approached. The president's science advisor is on line 1 about the quantum defense project. Michael choked on his wine. The president. Yes, brother dear. While you were playing CEO in Dad's shadow, I was revolutionizing global technology. Those computer games Dad mocked? They're now protecting national security. James pulled up more data. Nova's current valuation just hit $1.2 trillion. Anderson Global's worth approximately 2% of that. Dad's face went from red to white. Trillion. Stat. That waste of time, you ridiculed, built something bigger than you ever imagined. Want to see what else your disgrace of a daughter owns? The screens displayed my true empire. Technology companies, research institutions, innovation centers worldwide. Every major technological breakthrough in the past 3 years had come from Nova's labs. Your office, Dad? I continued, enjoying his flinch. The one you're so proud of? It's being converted into Nova's AI research center. Don't worry, we found you a nice cubicle on the first floor. Cubicle, he whispered. Next to Michael, I added. You can watch each other's spectacular fall from grace. Jessica, Michael's wife, tried to salvage something. But our status, our social standing, is now dependent entirely on my goodwill, I finished for her. Those country club memberships you love? I own the clubs. All of them. The luxury stores where you spend Michael's bonuses? My subsidiaries. Even this restaurant. I gestured around. I bought it last month. Mom's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. You own Le Cirque? I own every restaurant in Manhattan that matters, I corrected. Along with the buildings they're in. That real estate empire Dad's so proud of? It's not even a footnote in Nova's portfolio. The screens now showed live feeds from Nova facilities worldwide. Thousands of employees, billions in assets, and innovations that were reshaping human civilization. Ms. Anderson, James interrupted, the Mars Colony project needs your approval for the new quantum processors. Mars Colony? Michael's voice cracked. Yes, dear brother. Those silly science fiction dreams you mocked? They're now reality. Nova's building humanity's first off-world settlement. Dad finally found his voice. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you. I laughed softly. Like when I tried to explain my business model at Christmas 3 years ago and you said I was playing pretend CEO? Or when I attempted to discuss my innovations at Easter, and Michael said I should get a real job like adults. The screens showed more breaking news. Nova Enterprises revolutionizes global technology. Olivia Anderson named world's most influential tech leader. Your new positions, I continued, pulling up their employment contracts, will reflect your actual abilities, not your last name. Michael, you'll be reporting to the mailroom supervisor. Dad, you're joining the maintenance team. Maintenance? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Consider it a lesson in humility, I smiled. Mom, you'll be working in the cafeteria. Those social skills you're so proud of? Put them to use serving lunch to actual successful people. Just then the restaurant's doors opened again. A familiar face walked in, Thomas Chin, Dad's biggest rival. Olivia, he called out warmly. Just sign the merger papers. When do I start as Nova's Global Innovation Director? Dad's legs gave out completely. His arch-nemesis of 30 years was now his daughter's executive. Thomas will be overseeing all technological development, I announced to the stunned room, including whatever's left of Anderson Global's R&D department. The final blow came when my assistant projected one last set of numbers, my personal net worth versus the combined value of every company my family had ever dreamed of owning. But the night wasn't over yet. The real shock was still to come. The night air crackled with tension as my family struggled to process their new reality. But I wasn't finished. The real revelations were about to begin. Ms. Anderson, James announced, the Wall Street Journal is live. Should we proceed with the global announcement? Display it, I commanded. Every screen in the restaurant lit up with my corporate headshot and the headline that would reshape my family's understanding forever. Nova Enterprises CEO Olivia Anderson reveals global tech revolution, world's youngest trillionaire transforms human civilization. Trillionaire. Michael's wife whispered, her designer bracelet suddenly looking very cheap. Actually, James corrected, checking his tablet. With tonight's stock surge, Ms. Anderson's net worth just hit $2.7 trillion. That's more than the GDP of most continents. Mom's perfect posture finally crumbled. But you live in that small apartment. That small apartment is the top 5 floors of Nova Tower, I smiled. The building I bought last year. You know, the one that makes Dad's office look like a storage shed. The screens shifted to show my real estate holdings. Skyscrapers, tech campuses, research facilities spanning the globe. Dad's precious Anderson building was barely visible among them. Speaking of real estate, I continued, pulling up more data, let's discuss your homes. Our homes. Dad's voice trembled. Yes. The mansion you're so proud of? The vacation houses? The private islands? I own them all now. Nova's real estate division acquired them through shell companies last month. You've been my tenants for weeks. Michael stood up, desperation in his eyes. You can't do this. We're family. Family. I laughed softly. Like when you told the board I was mentally unstable for leaving Anderson Global. Or when you spread rumors about my failed career at the country club. The screens displayed board meeting minutes from 5 years ago. Every cruel word, every attempted sabotage, every effort to destroy my reputation. Ms. Anderson, another executive approached. Elon Musk is on line 3 about the Mars collaboration. Elon Musk. Jessica choked. Yes. Those crazy space dreams you mocked at Thanksgiving? They're now humanity's future. Nova's technology is making interplanetary civilization possible. James pulled up the Mars project details, massive colonies, quantum networks, and innovations that made Dad's company look prehistoric. Your office is already being cleared, I informed my father. The quantum computing lab needs the space. Don't worry, we saved your precious golf trophies. They'll look nice in your new cubicle. But my legacy. Dad stammered. Your legacy? I raised an eyebrow. Let's talk about legacies. The screens filled with Nova's achievements. Medical breakthroughs, environmental solutions, technological revolutions. While you were building a company, I was changing the world. Mom tried one last time. Darling, surely we can work something out. Keep this in the family. Like you kept me in the family? I pulled up their social media posts, society page quotes, every public rejection and mockery. You made your choice 5 years ago. Now I'm making mine. The restaurant's doors opened again as more executives entered. Ms. Anderson, the Global Innovation Summit is ready. They're waiting for your keynote. The screens switched to a live feed of the world's most powerful tech leaders, all waiting for my address. My family watched in stunned silence as their disgraced daughter commanded the attention of global pioneers. Oh, and Dad. I added, watching him flinch. Those government contracts you're so proud of? Check who they're really with now. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, accessing Anderson Global's contracts. His face went ashen as Nova's logo appeared on every document. You control our contracts? I control everything, I corrected. Every project, every deal, every dollar Anderson Global touches now belongs to Nova. To me. Michael, desperate to salvage something, spoke up, but my position, my future. Your future. I smiled coldly. Let me show you your future. I pulled up his new employment contract. You start Monday in the mailroom. 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late, your supervisor isn't as forgiving as I am. The screens displayed one final set of numbers. The comparison between Nova's daily revenue and Anderson Global's entire history of earnings. The difference was so vast it looked like a typing error. Ms. Anderson, James interrupted, the space station needs your approval for the quantum grid installation. Space station. Mom whispered. His mom. That head in the clouds daughter you dismissed? She's literally among the stars now. Nova's building humanity's first permanent orbital settlement. The final blow came when my assistant distributed new business cards to my family, their new positions clearly listed at the bottom of Nova's corporate hierarchy. Welcome to Nova Enterprises, I announced to their shocked faces. Where success isn't inherited, it's earned. Something you're all about to learn the hard way.